I feel like we continually, as a society, get worse at communicating and not understanding that these are skills that we have to work on to improve.
Oh, in a full year, and that lets you save. Who cares?
Welcome to a brand new edition of Ageless Energy, where we talk about how to burn fat, increase energy, and balance hormones for women over 40. Over the past 20 years as a performance coach, I've worked with hundreds of women that have the exact same struggles you do. I hope to shine some light with this podcast on what can be the most challenging time of your life and let you know there is hope to find success with your health and what you're looking for. Please share and enjoy. Hello. Welcome back to another Ageless Energy Show. Today we are talking about the skill of patience. And then I also want to talk about the skill of communication, which I think go hand in hand, but we'll see. At any rate, if you're not sure who I am, my name is Drew Tadia, founder and CEO of True Form Life. For the past 20 years, I've been working with women to help them increase energy, burn body fat, and balance hormones. So if that's you, you are in the right place. You know, what's interesting is we have at least at the time of this recording, we have a toddler, and he doesn't particularly like to listen. Is that normal, or is that just our toddler? He likes to talk, and I think that it's similar to adults that just talk and don't particularly listen. And that's not like, I don't say that to try to hurt anyone's feelings or disrespect anyone. It's just more of a general statement of most people talk and few people listen. So I'm reading this book called Super Communicators, and it's pretty fantastic. But I feel like it's more about listening than talking, which may or may not be beneficial. But a lot of times I feel like we just talk and don't really say a whole lot of substance. And I feel like we would be better off if we were to listen more than we talk. But I also think it's a skill that we don't necessarily have worked on. Have you ever been around a conversation where two people are talking at each other and neither is listening, and they're both talking about something different? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Let me know in the comments. It's like two people just want to be heard, and it's not really a conversation. It's just talking. And this thing is, it sounds funny being in this position of, whether that's coaching or training or talking myself, but I've never really been a talker. I've always been more so quietly listening. And you can learn so much from people if you would just listen. And I feel like most people don't. They're too busy talking. And I think that goes back to our toddler, who we actually tell him, listen, not listen in the regards of listen. We say, mommy and daddy are talking. When it's your turn, you get to talk. And he just doesn't have any concept of that. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just want to talk. I just want to get my point across. And I feel like we as adults are like that. Like, everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to share their perspective, I think, in most cases. But it makes it really difficult to have a proper conversation or proper communication if everyone just wants to be heard and not necessarily want to be listened to, or not necessarily want to listen. So this goes back to a skill, and I really do think it's a skill to learn how to listen. I wasn't a good listener until I had a radio show. So I've been hosting a radio show for over 10 years, but before that time, or earlier on, I would get a little bit agitated when I'd have someone on and all he did was talk, because I didn't necessarily know how to control a conversation or change the subject or politely interrupt. Those are all skills I've learned over the years, but I think we have over 600 shows now. So I probably have over 400 interviews. And at the same time, let's say, for example, like one of our clients or members, they might have one call with me in a day. And maybe that's not fair. They probably talk to coworkers, or they're in a business meeting, for example. But I just feel like I have a little bit of advantage working on this skill because of the position that I'm in. So I might have 5 or 6 calls a day, and most of those calls are listening and offering solutions. So I guess what my point is, it takes time to learn how to communicate properly. But at any rate, I wanted to mention this book because, again, it's called Super Communicators. I'm not affiliated to it, not selling it. I just think it's so important for us to be better communicators in this world. That's why I really dislike the thumbs up response. Like, it really bothers me on a deep level. Not just because I think it's inconsiderate, but I think because of what we choose to participate in this world. Like, we choose to participate in all kinds of crazy stuff. And some of you have read or heard my thoughts about whether that's tariffs or political agendas, or participating or jumping in on like angry mob stuff just because everyone else is. Like, it's not really my thing. But at the same time, it's really difficult to particularly listen and understand what's happening if all we're doing is finding ways to reduce communication. Like, let's say, for example, someone will ask me a question. This is in the DMs. This is direct message or private message. Sometimes someone says, "What does DM mean?" So hopefully that's helpful. And they'll say, "But hey, can you tell me about sleep?" Or my metabolism is off. And I'll write I'll write like 3 paragraphs. And the alternative for me could have been, here's a link to a video. Watch this. But I don't think that's a proper way to communicate. And I don't think that person particularly is looking forward to just a link sent to them. They're asking me a question. So I'll answer in maybe a few paragraphs. I like to ask questions so you can have a better idea of what's going on. So I ask some questions and I try to offer some advice. And sometimes that's 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, depending on how in depth I would like to get at that point. And then I'll get a response with a thumbs up. And like the thumbs up to me is like, it just feels inconsiderate because I put the time and effort to respond to someone. And I feel like the other side doesn't have common courtesy enough to be like, to even type. Like they don't even want to say thank you or continue the conversation. It's just like, really busy right now. Got to keep moving. Thanks for the thumbs up. And I'm off. So, but that's just a pet peeve of mine. That doesn't mean anything to anyone. My point is that we participate in lack of communication. So it's instead, like it used to be a phone call, right? We used to be better at communication because we could actually talk on a phone. And now we don't talk on a phone anymore. We used to send emails. So longer form emails. So that was still a better form of communication. And now we've moved to text messages, which I would say is a little less of a proper communication because they're usually shorter. But then even you have your like your DMs in social media, which in my experience is even shorter, from a thumbs up to one word to one line. So I feel like we continually as a society get worse at communicating and not understanding that these are skills that we have to work on to improve. And I think about the younger generations because we have a toddler, and I think, my gosh, is he going to be able to have a conversation? And what's really cool is because of the situation we're in life and understanding where we'd like to be, where we'd like to go, and the importance of communication, he'll be in the elevator in our building, and he just turned 3 at the time of this recording, and he will have a full-blown conversation with an adult, and they are blown away. They're like, why is this little child talking to me and asking questions like, hi, how you doing? What's your name? What's your favorite color? What's your dog's name? I just think it's like, and then he'll respond. We'll help him, like, how are you doing? And we'll tell him like, good, thanks. How are you? But that's a skill that we're helping him learn as he gets older. And I feel like that is such an important skill that anyone could learn from and improve on. Like for example, if you're not particularly listening, or if you've never learned how to listen, you could be having a conversation with someone and have no idea what they're talking about. Isn't that crazy? I think there's a lot of people that don't particularly like the thumbs up. They just don't say anything. Or I think people start to not like it and then they just participate in anyways because everyone else is, right? And instead of communicating that, don't really appreciate it. It's just it's just a silly thing. Like I know people don't mean anything by it, but that doesn't mean I enjoyed anything any less. So that's one skill I wanted to mention in particular, is the skill of listening. And like you have to actually put in effort to be able to become a better listener and then a better communicator. I don't think you can be a better communicator if you're too busy talking, like always talking and never listening. And then I don't think you can be a really good communicator if you don't practice is one and learn is the other one. So learning, reading about it, education, and then practicing it. Like I said, when I started out in radio, when I was doing interviews, I'd get like really agitated when the other person just talk. And I'll tell you, the worst interviews I've ever had was a monologue. It was just someone that would show up, not really good at communicating. They didn't understand the back and forth, and it was just like, it was one long monologue, and it was boring. Like they just talked and talked. They rambled on. There was no focus. There was no clarity. I didn't really enjoy the interview because the person was just talking at me. I was like, why don't you just record yourself and throw that up somewhere, right? So there was that. And then I think people actually like to hear an open dialogue of different opinions moving back and forth, which I feel like that's just radio I'm talking about, or a specific interview, but we talk to people every single day, or we should. Do you remember when we were at the line at the grocery store and we used to talk to people, and now all we do is stare at our phones and flip through our newsfeed? Like, it is bonkers, like what we accept and participate in this world. And I'm not saying I'm any better. I try to be better, certainly, and I try to be conscious of what's going on around me. But we live in such an unconscious world where communication is. And let me take a step back and explain. Like, I feel that communication is the very root of every issue in this world. Lack of communication. So if you have a lack of communication with your spouse, with your kids, with your grandkids, with your coworkers, with your boss, if you have like issues or challenges or or arguments, it almost always stems from lack of communication. So over communicating and expressing your feelings in a professional manner. It's like, I feel like when I go to, I have obviously, I mentioned this a few times, we have a toddler. So there's so many similarities I see with a 3-year-old, or from 2 to 3 that I see with adults. Like sometimes, for example, adults don't know how to properly like express their feelings. They just blow up and it's like, bam, here it is, all in your face. And you're like, what are you trying to get at? Or what are you actually trying to say? Because it's not really coming across that well, like certainly not in a professional manner or not in a helpful manner, but that's people that just want to be heard, right? But then you have a toddler that doesn't know how to control their emotions, and they're just like spewing words and emotions and tears and like laughing and crying, and it's all bunched together. And I feel like that isn't much different than adults. We're just older and look different, and we're usually much bigger. The other one I wanted to touch on was, this is a different type of topic. This is usually something I would probably only talk about with our MAP members, our one-on-one clients, because this is a little bit deeper, I would say deeper training or deeper thoughts that I'm not sure everyone in the public would enjoy. Let me know in the comments if this is a topic that's interesting to you. I suppose you'd jump off if you weren't. The last one what I wanted to mention was the skill of patience. So I did mention this. I did a short video for our members in our private portal, and it was about patience and the skill of patience. And again, I just like communication. I think patience is also a skill. So we have so many things, like we have so many things that we want to happen immediately. And when they don't happen immediately, we get frustrated and we throw tantrums, or we don't necessarily know how to voice our opinion, or we just don't know what to do while we're waiting. And I'll tell you, most of you understand this is a health show, so I relate everything to health in some way. So let's say, for example, you're looking to lose weight. While you're taking the steps for that to happen, there needs to be some exercise. There needs to be some patience exercise, right? The problem is that we lack the skill of patience, which is why so many people are not able to stick to a program. So you could jump on a program for 21 days, and whether you see results or not, most people jump off because if they see results, it's not enough results. If they don't see the result, or if it is results, it didn't come quick enough, right? So those are both two skills we're lacking, or those actions show the skill we're lacking in patience. It's the same thing as, that's why I don't like the 21 days. I don't even like the 90 days. So you jump on a program for 90 days and you don't see the results you're looking for. You don't know what to do. Because not understanding that in most cases 90 days isn't enough time for you to get to where you're going, is enough time for you to get to where you want to go. But without the skill of patience, you jump off and you find something else to do, and you have to start all over again. Just think about that for example. So let's say hypothetically you join a program for 90 days and you need time for your digestion to reset, probably need time for your metabolism to reset. You need some time to understand the systems and the training that program is offering. So you need time to settle in to a program, to start to give yourself time to get good at the tasks that they're asking. And 90 days is far too short. So we used to have a program that was 90 days. And what we would see is people would see results early on, then they'd start to settle in. And then closer to that 90-day mark, they would start to see even more results. And then mentally, they'd had already checked out because they lacked the patience skill, and they would jump off and stop doing all the things that brought them to that short-term success. And they would say, oh, I'll just figure it out on my own. And then they would lose all the results that they gained without that patience skill. It's so difficult to understand that it takes time for you to get good at anything that you're hoping for. That could be meal prepping, that could be exercise, that could be mindset training that you're lacking. So there's a lot of things in this regard that need to be addressed when it comes to patience in particular, but I see that so often, and that's a struggle that I'm going through right now, of understanding what to do while you're being patient, and understanding, like, honing that skill of patience and maybe acceptance and deep breathing. So I'll just tell you briefly real quick. We had one new product that was supposed to come out December, January, almost 3 months ago. It's supposed to come out 3 months ago. There's always delays. Manufacturers are terrible to work with. In another life, maybe I'll be a manufacturer. That doesn't suck. They're really hard to deal with. And this is a constant struggle that we go through as a company that works with manufacturers to produce our own products, which is why it's so much easier just to sell someone else's product, not something I want to do. So they were supposed to have a product ready for me 3 months ago. Still not here. I think it's going to be here in 2 or 3 weeks, but there's delays. So that's one thing. It's really bugging me. We have our maca in new bags coming straight from the manufacturer, new labels. They look very clean and professional, and I'm very excited about that. But it took them time to produce and label and package, and they're not here. And I'm like, come on, let's go. So we have another product that's a different product. That's a surprise. I'll just save it. So I'm waiting for that. We are also, while I was waiting for that one product, I was so impatient. I was like, I need to launch a product. So I contacted another manufacturer, and we worked out another product that I'm very excited about, because I was like, well, they may keep delaying that. So I said, I'm going to order from a different manufacturer. So, but I feel like these could sound like impatience, but you have to figure out what you're doing while you're waiting. And the thing is that we have giant goals that Dorothy, my wife, and my toddler, we mostly only share with, because I think you have to be careful with who you share your goals with, because so many people want to squash your goals, or so many people won't believe in them, or they're so big, at least for us, that most people won't believe it could happen, and then they push you down. So I think if you have a very close-knit family group, some of this we share with our members, but we have really big goals. So while we're working toward these giant goals, some of these steps that I'm taking will take us closer to those goals financially, and then will give us more of an opportunity to achieve the goals that we want personally. Okay. So while we're waiting for these big giant goals to happen, what action steps are you taking? So like waiting, ordering, finding a different, waiting for a manufacturer, looking for a different manufacturer. What we have to do is we have bags to order. These are our labels. It's a little sneak peek. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. Those are the labels that we have to design. We have to send the labels off, wait for them to come back. So this all takes time and patience to happen. And then, so while that's happening, I said, I kind of want to learn ads, because I've never been really successful with ads in particular.
One of the things I would like to ask of you guys is that some of you know that I don't run ads on the show and don't plan on in the immediate future. So the only ask I have for you is that you help us spread the word so we can help more women burn body fat, increase energy, and balance their hormones. And the only way that we can do that is if you can rate and review this podcast. So the single thing that I could have you do, or could ask of you, is to leave a review. It'll take 5 minutes or one swipe of the thumb. It would mean the absolute world to me. And more importantly, you could change the world for someone else. As many of you know, there's plenty of women that struggle in this age group for balancing hormones, increasing energy, and burning body fat. So if you could help spread the word, that would make a big difference in our life and probably someone else's as well.
So I'm learning ads so we can sell so I can get good at selling our current products. So when the new products come in, we can run ads to them as well, and hopefully be successful in that regard. So of course, that's very specific to what we're doing in particular. And I often talk about what we're going through in hopes that that would relate to you guys as well. But as a health and wellness company, helping you guys understand like this patience and what you're doing in the meantime will make a huge difference. So let's say you've joined a program, or let's say you've joined a gym. Not the biggest fan of gyms, but let's say you've joined something and you have something to work towards, and everyone should have something to work towards. Otherwise, you're just showing up aimlessly. So what are the things that you're doing during that time frame that's going to take time for you to see the results you're hoping for? Let me read this and I'll finish that sentence. It didn't take 90 days to get where you are. It's not going to take 90 days to get where you want. Patience is definitely key. Thanks, Patty. Very wise words. So you have to decide what it is that you're doing while you're being patient, right? So what are the action steps that you're taking? So for example, it could be, instead of focusing on the scale, it could be focusing on the number of workouts that you're doing. For example, if you want to run a marathon and you're just starting out, maybe you focus on doing one run a month. So I'm going to start off by doing a 5K this month. Next month, I'm going to do another 5K. The month after, I'm going to train for a 10K. So these little moments of focus will help you avoid just staring. It's the same thing like when we talk to our members and we say, okay, you've seen it. So here, this is what happens to our members all the time, is that they lose a bunch of weight and then they don't want to buy any new clothes because they're not done yet. And they're going to lose more weight So they don't want those new clothes not to fit because they're too expensive. I'm using air quotes because I don't believe that's necessarily true. I think that we don't believe we're worth buying the new clothes, which is a form of self-sabotage and doesn't take us closer to the goals that we want to get to, right? It doesn't transform us into the person that we want to be, right? And to go from someone that wants to be 25 to 50 pounds difference, that's a very different person. You need to have different thoughts, different words, different actions. If you want it to stick, you hang out with different people. You go to different events on the weekend instead of laying around drinking beer, watching the football game. Maybe you're going to a race and volunteering or walking. That's a different lifestyle, which is why we see so many people full on self-sabotage. They see a bunch of results, new energy, no more appointments, less medication. And then they're like, I am not ready for this person. That's part of our job to help mentally train as we work through the program. But a lot of people freak out like, oh my gosh, and they rush back to the person they were because they're not ready to be the person they want to be mentally, right? So understand that these small steps while you're being patient will take up some of your space. So you can understand, like, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait. I'm going to take deep breaths. I'm going to allow these results to come in. And while that's happening, my focus is going to be elsewhere with a vision of whether that's setting a goal of like a mini monthly goal of I need 4 meal preps in this month. I need however many workouts, 15 workouts this week. And then after you hit those goals, you celebrate them. It's so important to celebrate milestones with achievements, with something that you look forward to. Now, I would probably suggest staying away from food because our whole world is based around like every celebration, every birthday, every holiday is all food. So for your rewards, I would suggest something else. I'll tell you this real quick and then I'll let you go. I'm going to jump off in just a few minutes. But I have a Spartan coming up here in a couple weeks. Another one, it's a big one, 21K, 30 obstacles. This will only be my second one. I usually do shorter distances, like 5, maybe 10Ks. So this is a big stretch for me mentally, physically, emotionally. Last time, one of our members said, well, what are you going to do after you finish your Spartan? And I haven't really thought about it because to me, the Spartan is the reward. I know it sounds crazy, but I spent all this time training and like running. I've probably run more in the last year and a half than I have in my whole life, long distance wise. I used to run short distance as an athlete, but at any rate, every run is in prep. Every workout is in prep for that one goal. So when I get to run that Spartan, I actually feel like that is the reward. So that is one. And then number two, I kind of jokingly said, I don't know. So after that last Spartan I did, we were in Arizona. They had a hot sauna and they had an ice bath. And like, I don't particularly like to spend money on myself, not personally. Maybe that has to do with self-worth. It's probably closer connected to I spent many years like as an entrepreneur having no money, not knowing if I could pay my bills. So I never liked to spend money unless it's on the business and I'm going to get a return out of it. So, excuse me, that's a completely different side note. But there was a sauna there and an ice bath. So I treated myself, and this is something I wouldn't normally pay for. I treated myself to a sauna and an ice bath after that Spartan. So we were kind of joking, and I said, I don't know, I'll probably do an ice bath. And I just thought that it was a joke, but it's true. Like it's real. Like I actually enjoy ice baths, and it's actually nice to reward your body because it reduces inflammation and it helps with sore muscles and lactic acid, like tons of health benefits, right? So instead of being like, a lot of times people finish a half marathon or a marathon or a Spartan and they're like, let's go drink beers and eat pizza. Like that's fine. I honestly don't have any judgment for that. That's just not for me. That's not what I want to do. I would rather drink a bunch of water, take a bunch of greens, sit in an ice bath, and then hang out with my family. But that's just me, right? Okay. Just wrapping things up. Sam says, wow, never thought of that before. Makes sense. Awesome. Very nice to hear. It's always nice to hear feedback with what I'm saying and sharing and hopefully teaching. Sometimes it's difficult to sit here staring at a blank screen, and I think it's a completely different skill because imagine not talking to someone, like not a human. I'm talking to cameras and robots. Anyways, that's probably more along the lines of the direction we're going. Just talking to our robots at home. Veronica says, awesome. You'll appreciate it. I certainly will. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining live. I'm going to jump off. Hopefully that was helpful. If we can help with anything, drop your comments below or reach out. You can send us a private message. Trueformlife.com is our website where we have our products and services if that's of interest or helpful to anyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll catch up soon. Bye, everyone.